Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. Porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome, also known as PRRS, is a significant disease of swine. Here with us today to discuss some new research findings related to whether next generation biosecurity can effectively reduce the risk of PRRS incidents across a large commercial production company is Dr. Scott Dee. Welcome, Scott. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Sarah. Great to see you. Happy New Year.
For those of you that are joining us online, we thank you for taking the time to tune in. If you have any questions, feel free to post those in the chat area to the right of your screen. If you're joining us from social media, simply post your questions directly in those channels. So, Scott, we all know, I think that PRRS is a really devastating disease for the hog industry. We got loss of production, we got reduced animal welfare, and just overall significant economic loss. Now, you've been recently involved in a study that looked at something called Next Generation Biosecurity, or NGB for short, and its application for controlling PRRS, and for that matter, probably other swine diseases. Let's start by having you tell us exactly what is NGB and how does it differ from traditional biosecurity?
Yeah, good question, Sarah. Next generation biosecurity was a term I think Gordon Sprunk came up with, or Adam Shelkoff, Joel Nerum, the vets at Pipestone, when we were kind of putting this idea together. And it really is based on taking everything we know about PRRS virus transmission that's been scientifically validated, all the routes the virus can enter, and then looking at all the literature on prevention. What are the biosecurity protocols that have been tested and proven efficient at blocking entry to the farm? And then develop a comprehensive program across all that information. And so we take that program in its entirety to the farm and apply it versus, as you say, the traditional approach may be, well, I'll change this and I'll change that. And later I might look at changing this and changing that. It's a little helter-skelter. This is much more comprehensive. It's much more controlled. And that's the difference between NGB versus just the traditional old school approach.
So I know you've only done this at a Pipestone facilities or in the Pipestone complex there, but do you think it's something that would be unique to each farm? Like outside of Pipestone, it might be a different kind of NGB approach, or do you think it would be very similar? Any thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. I think it's very applicable to basically any system. When you look at how we did this, we looked at how does the virus enter a farm? And we started with the direct routes. And the direct routes are pigs and semen. So you start with a negative breeding stock source and a negative semen source. And that's pretty common. And then you start putting on these, looking at the indirect routes and putting on these other layers on top of that. So you've got what we call mechanical routes, which are fomite-based routes, trucks, people, supplies, and how those fomite-based risk factors work into the equation. And there's a lot of good science out there that says if you want to block those, this is what you do. So you start doing that. On top of that, you put an air filtration system on top of the farm, because we know PRRS virus travels in the air very readily. And then on top of that, which was kind of the missing link at first, was the feed risk. The feed, we've now shown that feed can introduce PRRS virus to a farm. And so you're taking all these known routes and all these known and validated interventions, and you're putting it together at the same time. And so it's not just do one, do the other, do the next one, just do it all at once. And that's the next generation approach. That's what we wanted to do at Pipestone, was test it across our system, because it's a big system. And so if we can show it works in the real world like that, then we've got something to say.
So how exactly did you do that? How did you test it across the system?
Yeah, so the veterinarians on the team, again, Gordon, Joel, Adam, myself, and others, got together and put the plan together. And then basically we implemented the plan using the veterinarians that went to the farm. We using trained auditors and technicians that go to the farm, and they just start educating the staff and putting these pieces together. So if the farm has got a great truck wash system, but it's lacking an air filtration system, we try to insert that missing link in the piece. Every farm starts using feed additives to reduce the virus in the feed. And so over time, piece by piece, with the help of many people on the team, we were able to put this plan together across the system. And the nice thing about doing it in Pipestone was everything is standardized across the system. So the truck wash protocol is the same across farms. The filtration system is the same across farms. How people enter the farm is consistent. Supply is consistent. So it's not, again, a lot of helter-skelter variation. It's a very, very even playing field where then we can start to look at, does this really work, and do statistics on the outcomes.
Kind of a very controlled conditions. So what did you find? What were the results of your research?
Well, it was kind of, a couple of years ago, we started this, and we all kind of said, well, let's just watch it and see what happens. And so I think there were 68 of our breeding farms at that time in the system. And so 68 farms started in we call it disease year 1, which was July 2021 to June 30, 2022. And we just started watching how this worked and what was the percentage of farms that broke with a new strain. That's what we were measuring, was new virus introduction. How many farms had a new virus introduced and how many farms did not? And we saw there was a striking reduction in overall incidence. We say the percentage of infection. We took a system that used to be at 30 to 50% PRRS incidence every year down to 8.6%, which I'd never seen before. That's significant reduction. And so we thought, well, let's really test it and let's do it again. And so we did it for another year. Nothing really changed. We just did it for another year. And we came up with, again, a reduction of a significant reduction down to 9.2% over this entire company, which by that time consisted of 76 breeding farms and almost 400,000 sows. So this was a mega system that we're able to really show statistically significant reductions in the entry of new viruses to these farms that did this program. It was amazing, in my opinion. I've never seen anything like it before.
It is a significant reduction, 30 to about 8 point something percent. That's very noteworthy. Now you talked about this being in the breeding herd. Have you done anything on the wean to finish segment or other parts of the chain? What are you thinking about there?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's what's missing is we have to do something there. The breeding farm is way ahead of the game because we've been working on this basically since I was a new faculty member at the University of Minnesota back in 2000. The wean to market is a new game, and I'm happy to say that our team, again led by Adam Shelkoff and a few other vets, have put together a wean to market biosecurity plan. Similar approach, and now they're applying it and they're measuring it. So the data, it's probably too early to talk about, but the same concept is getting applied to the wean to market. What can we do in the wean to market side to reduce virus introduction? It's a very different question than breeding herd. You're not going to filter finishing barns, but what can you do to reduce new virus entry into wean to market? So it's coming.
Now, on your breeding herd research, it took a couple of years. Do you think we'll have to see the same kind of length of time when you talk about the wean to market, or do you think it's something that you can take what you've already applied and to what you're learning next?
Yeah, I think there's so much we already know. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel at the wean to market. We know that trucks are going to be important. We know that people are going to be important. Maybe feed's going to be important. So we kind of have a pretty good idea of how to start the process at that level. I don't think we need to do a whole lot of new research or reinvent anything. I think we already know what to do. And to our vet team's credit, it's moving down the road. And now we just got to measure to see what percentage of these farms get infected and which percentage don't, just like we did on the south side, and then compare them and make sure they're statistically significant.
So in the work you've done so far, any kind of like study limitations or anything that should be noted that, hey, maybe we should have done something a little different, maybe we should have looked at this, anything that's kind of popped up after the fact that you want to just make note of?
Yeah, there you go. Good question. So the biggest surprise, I guess, when we looked at the data after year 1, we call this a retrospective cohort study. So it means we conduct the program for the year, and then we go back and look at the data and see what it says. And what we found out in the first year was not every sow farm was able to apply the complete program, meaning that some farms could do had the direct routes covered, they had the mechanical routes covered, they had a feed route covered, but they didn't have an air filtration system. That was the missing link on some of the farms. And so we were able to see how the complete program did versus what we call the incomplete program, the farms that were missing the air filtration. And it was amazing. So in the 2-year study, in the complete farms, the farms that had the entire program, we had an 8.9% incidence, okay? When compared to the incomplete that were doing everything but filtering, the incidence was 40%. And so there was a big difference in the farms that do everything, all components of the program versus ones that could not filter. So it just shows the benefit of air filtration, which we've known for a long time. That was very surprising. So that's another reason why we want to do this again and really test this. Not just, we might have got lucky after 1 year. Let's do it again. And so that's one of the powerful pieces of this study is we were able to repeat it. And the system grew over time as we did it. And we put everything together at the end of it all. And we were so happy we got below 10% on both years across all the farms.
Did you see any relation to, say, herd density or facility design, or perhaps even where that facility is located? Anything that jumped out there?
That's $1 million question. That's the key. And so we wanted, because I know where you're going is you're saying, well, maybe your complete farms were in very low dense regions and you're biased because there's not a lot of pig farms around them to challenge compared to the incomplete farms. So what we did was we mapped every farm. We mapped all the barns around every farm within a 3-mile radius. And we visited every site around each farm in a 3-mile radius and confirmed whether it had pigs or not, confirmed who owned those pigs, got that density question answered. And then we did statistics on it and we found out there was no difference in the area density around NGB complete versus NGB incomplete. That was a very essential piece of the message that the location did not bias the outcome.
Interesting. So Scott's paper is posted, and Scott, you had other folks on your paper with you, but that paper is posted there in the chat if you folks would like to take a look at that. That's just coming out here. I think it was published just a couple days ago. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about, where people can find it and where you went about getting this information out there to people?
Yeah. So first, I really want to be sure I tip my hat to all the members of the team that were on the publication. We had a lot of co-authors. We had our Pipestone group, as I mentioned, Joel Adam, Lisa Brands, a senior analyst, Karen Havis, our veterinary epidemiologist. We really put a big team together to do this. But we also brought in the University of Minnesota swine faculty, Dr. Cesar Corzo and Dr. Mariana Cacuti, who actually look at the Morrison Swine Health Monitoring Project on a daily basis. We modeled our metric after the Bob Morrison Swine Health Monitoring Project. We wanted to be sure we were doing it right. So we brought Cesar and Mariana in to make sure our data were accurate. So that was a big plus. And I want to make sure I thank everybody on the team for helping me out with this. As far as where it is, it's published in a journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association, or the JAVMA. And we put it in the JAVMA because the JAVMA has a huge global footprint. Everybody reads the JAVMA. Plus, it goes out to all species. And I think a lot of the lessons we learned in this project are applicable to other species. They're also applicable to other diseases, just like, say, African swine fever. A lot of the things we learned and validated could clearly help pork producers if ASF ever enters the United States. But that's why we put it in the JAVMA. The JAVMA is a great journal. Everybody reads it. And it goes to all the veterinarians across the profession. So it's a good place to publish.
And again, that link is there for you if you folks would like to check that out. So Scott, any final thoughts? What do you want to leave our audience with here today? And of course, I want to remind our audience, post any questions you have. Now's the time to do that before we let Scott go here.
Well, maybe the couple things I'd like to say is I'm very excited about this paper. It's kind of the culmination of my last 36 years of work on transmission and biosecurity and watching that science perform under very rigorous conditions. So that was good. I like that. The other thing I wanted, a little bit of to the producers and veterinarians listening out there. I know we're in a really tough time, and it's frustrating. But this virus, this is good news. This paper is good news in a tough time. And this virus, has held us hostage for 30 some years and it's told us what to do. It's dictated how we act. It's dictated how we operate. This paper says you can change that. You don't have to think that way anymore. If you follow the rules and follow the science, we now can control this disease. We're in charge now. I think that's a very important positive message that this paper brings us, because now it's actually published and validated that you can do this without anything really special about what we did. We just simply applied good biosecurity.
Pretty much what you're already doing and just making sure you're doing it right, and move over PRRS. We got you, huh?
Well, it could change tomorrow, but and I'm confident it won't. I'm confident we can continue these good results. We're continuing to track it, and I just encourage everybody listening to take a look at the paper and study it and see if it can help you out, because that's why we do these things. We don't do it just to make a dusty old journal on the shelf. This has got to be valuable for the industry, for the vet profession. This is for all of you out there, because it's the first time anyone's shown that you can actually control this disease on a large scale for a sustainable period of time.
Very good. Dr. Scott Dee, we appreciate you for joining us here today, as always, and keep us posted as that new, the swine to, or the wean to market research starts to come out. We'd be interested, of course, in all of that. So appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Likewise, we want to thank all of you for joining us and spending time with us. A reminder that all Feedstuffs 365 segments are available at feedstuffs.com. Simply go to Feedstuffs 365 in the nav bar, click on that, and you can watch this segment again, or you can watch any of our other segments that we've done. Appreciate you joining us. Until next time, for Feedstuffs 365, I'm Sarah Muirhead.